Right after getting hit with a punishment that many are already calling completely unfair, Marlon Humphrey finally broke his silence. And the way he opened up about everything felt so honest. It was like he was talking straight from the locker room. It all started with a massive fine, but what really shocked everyone was a strange, almost unbelievable way he found out about it. The whole situation was such a mess that even he wasn't sure what was going on at first. And the more Humphrey explained, the more layers this whole thing gained. It wasn't just about a fine. Suddenly, there were communication screw-ups, details from the play that completely changed how the punishment should be viewed, contradictions in the rulebook, and even a twist that puts the whole situation in a completely different light. Nothing about the story is simple, and the way Humphrey told it makes that very clear. Marlon Humphrey opened up about something that, to him, just didn't make sense. He said he received a massive fine from the NFL, more than $40,000, and the league didn't even tell him directly. No formal notice, no email, no clear communication. He only found out because people around him started talking about it, almost like a rumor floating around the locker room. That alone shows how flawed the league's process is for notifying players about something this serious. His frustration became even clearer when he explained why everything got so confusing. Since he doesn't have an agent handling these things for him, all notices are supposed to come straight to him. But for some reason, those emails never arrive. Instead, the NFL just drops an envelope in his locker, like it's still the early 2000s. And that's when he said the line that summed everything up perfectly. It's 2025. The best way to communicate isn't just through an envelope. Simple, direct, and a very real call out on how outdated the league's process still is. Humphrey spoke that way because he genuinely felt disrespected. It wasn't just about the amount of fine. It was about being treated like someone who's supposed to find out on his own that he's being punished. He made it clear the NFL has all the tools in the world to communicate properly, yet insists on a system that causes more confusion than clarity. His frustration didn't come from arrogance. It came from the feeling that something as serious as this deserved transparency, not guesswork. What made his honesty even more striking is how naturally he talked about it. Humphrey didn't sugarcoat anything. He didn't try to be political. He just described how bizarre it felt to go through something so serious with such a messy process. His tone was direct, almost like a venting session, showing this wasn't just a complaint about a fine. It was him saying players deserve basic respect when it comes to communication. And that reaction opened the door to an even bigger conversation, one that goes way beyond how he found out about the fine. Because after talking about the communication mess, Humphrey also broke down the play itself. And that's where the story takes another turn. He took responsibility, but also explained why the situation is way more complicated than it looks from the outside. After venting about the ridiculous way he found out about the fine, Humphrey went straight into the play itself. He didn't dodge responsibility. He didn't throw out excuses. He didn't try to twist the story in his favor. He looked at the situation with complete honesty and said something few expected to hear. I lowered my helmet. That one sentence shows how ready he was to own up to what happened. Even when the conversation revolved around a huge fine and the noise surrounding the whole situation. When a player admits something that openly, it shows a level of maturity that not everyone has. He didn't claim the refs overreacted or that the play was misunderstood. He faced the reality head-on and acknowledged that the NFL's rules on helmet usage are clear, and what he did fits the definition of the infraction. That posture, even if tough, reveals something important. Humphrey understands the game deeply and knows when it's time to accept what the rulebook says. At the same time, the way he talked about it felt natural, like someone who knows he messed up and understands the consequences. No drama, no emotional spin, just the truth. That kind of honesty creates a strong connection with whoever's listening because it sounds genuine, not rehearsed. He treated it like part of the job, something every physical player goes through eventually. And that honesty opened the door for something even more interesting. Because after admitting the mistake, Humphrey explained how certain plays actually unfold on the field, and why some situations are way more complex than they look on screen. And once he got into that layer of detail, the whole conversation shifted, giving a deeper look into mechanics of the game and the split-second decisions that make some movements unavoidable. Right after admitting he lowered his helmet, Humphrey got into something most people watching from home don't fully understand. He explained that when the ball is positioned near the receiver's chest, it's physically impossible to run toward him while looking down. And then he said something simple but incredibly revealing. I can't run up to him and put my chin on the ball. I'm going to break my own neck. That line says everything about how physically challenging and dangerous these movements can be. By describing the mechanics of play, he made it clear there's a massive difference between what the rule book says and what actually happens in real time. The speed, the angle, the positioning. Everything happens in milliseconds. The decisions players make aren't calculated. They're instinctive. Humphrey showed that when the ball is in that specific area, the body reacts naturally. And sometimes, the safest thing isn't aligned with what the rule book demands. The way he explained it sounded almost like he was asking people to understand how chaotic these moments truly are. It wasn't a defensive speech. It was a sincere explanation of the dilemma between protecting your own body and trying to avoid a penalty. The issue isn't the rule itself, but how the rule is applied in situations where there might not be a perfectly safe alternative. And that explanation led straight into something even bigger. Because if the mechanics of the play already created challenges, what really made things worse was the NFL labeling this as a second offense, which doubled the fine. And that's where Humphrey made it clear something wasn't adding up in his disciplinary history.
All right, we're already past the halfway point of this video, but before we continue, I noticed you haven't left a like yet. It's really important because it helps YouTube keep showing you my content so I can keep bringing you the best news about the Baltimore Ravens. So go ahead and hit that like button. It's free and it really helps. Thanks. Now let's get back to it.
When Humphrey got to the part about the actual cost of fine, his tone shifted completely. Now, it wasn't about the play or the envelope. It was about understanding why the NFL marked this as a second offense. And that's when he dropped something important. The penalty they were using as reference, the one from the Bills' playoff game, had been rescinded, meaning, in reality, it shouldn't count toward a double fine. That detail created a huge gap between what the league recorded and what Humphrey actually experienced. He said that if the earlier punishment was officially removed, it made no sense for the NFL to treat him as a repeat offender. He talked about with a tone that felt almost confused, like someone trying to decipher a rule written in tiny, complicated letters. And that confusion highlighted a bigger issue, the lack of transparency in how these decisions are made. What stood out most in his explanation was a feeling of being stuck in a system where the rules exist, but not everyone has access to how they're interpreted. Humphrey said he probably needs to understand the rules and bylaws better, hinting that players aren't always fully informed about how these decisions are calculated. It's a system where interpretations vary, and those interpretations directly affect a player's wallet and reputation. That uncertainty added even more weight to frustration. He wasn't just questioning the fine. He was trying to understand how the league ended up at that number. And that search for clarity led directly into something he shared at the end of the episode, a moment of reflection about what comes next. After all the confusion with the notice, the play, and the second offense, Humphrey closed his message with a kind of honesty that really stood out. He admitted that he needs to be a smarter player, even if he disagrees with how the process was handled or how certain rules apply. He said he wants to adapt to what the NFL is trying to promote. He knows the league wants to take the helmet out of the game and reduce injury risks, and he respects that. His shift in tone wasn't surrender. It was the mindset of a veteran who understands a bigger picture. He knows the rules are getting stricter and that a poorly timed hit can lead to consequences far beyond a yellow flag. By saying he wants to play by the rule book, Humphrey showed he's focused on avoiding situations like this, not just because of fine, but because of his career and his own safety. The way he talked made it clear this reflection comes from someone who's been in the league for 9 years, someone who's lived through every version of the rulebook and knows how much the game has evolved. He approaches change like a veteran who understands the small details matter, especially now, when every hit is reviewed, analyzed, and judged under a microscope. And that final message wrapped everything together: the criticism, the confusion, the explanation, the doubts, and ultimately the responsibility. It wasn't just a player reacting to a punishment. It was someone adjusting to a sport that keeps changing, and that demands its players change with it. After everything he revealed, one thing became clear. Marlon Humphrey isn't just complaining about a fine, he's exposing something much bigger. His story shines a light on how the NFL still struggles with basic communication, even on matters as serious. And even though he admitted his mistake and acknowledged that he needs to adjust, Humphrey also showed how thin the line is between play with intensity and being punished unfairly. Through it all, he proved once again why he's one of the most respected voices in that Ravens locker room. But the real question now is whether the NFL will actually listen to this kind of criticism, or keep treating these situations like nothing more than numbers on a spreadsheet and envelopes dropped in a locker. Because after this whole situation, Humphrey's message goes far beyond the field. It's about respect. It's about clarity. It's about balance. And if there's one thing he made absolutely clear, it's that this story is far from over.
And if you, just like me, are passionate about the world of football and want to learn more about the Ravens' legacy, don't leave this video without sharing it with that friend who is also a Baltimore Ravens fan and will love this content. See those video suggestions on your screen? The first one was handpicked just for you, and the other is a recommendation from YouTube itself.